It's long, long back in the land of Wilso, a beautiful country. Wilso is a land of happiness. It is a gifted land, with deep rivers, beautiful jungles, hills, mountain ranges, and whatnot. People of Wilso say that it's a land of happiness because of King Arthur and Queen Sophia. They are loving, caring, and brave kings and queens. It seems it is like a fairy tale, but the people who lived in this country tell the stories of King Arthur even today. It is as real as the story of Frog the Painter. What is that story? Let's sit comfortably and hear this. It's a beautiful story. King Arthur and Queen Sophia are blessed with a son, Arso. Arso is as pretty as a baby can be. He is a chubby, fair baby with golden locks. He just celebrated his 7th birthday. Arso is the life of their palace. All the guards, helpers, maids, and chefs are very fond of Prince Arso. There is always a competition in the palace about who will be playing and spending time with the prince. Everything is going perfectly, perfect as God's rainbow. But a volcano of jealousy and hatred is brewing in the palace itself. All are unaware. It is his uncle Zurich. He is a distant cousin of King Arthur. Zurich is handicapped. By birth his one leg was thin and non-functional, and he had to use a cane to walk. This handicap made him a very angry and frustrated man. All servants in the palace are very scared of his anger. He looks dangerous with a heavy face, long thick beard, and sharp eyes. He always ties his hair in a ponytail. His hair resembles a spider cleaning brush with rough grass. When he walks, his cane makes a sound, and people get to know that Zurich is coming. In the palace, he is the only one who doesn't like Prince Arso. If he sees Arso playing in the garden or courtyard, he turns his face in another direction. If at a family gathering Arso comes close to Zurich, he pushes him away. And while doing all this, he takes utmost care that King Arthur should not see this hatred. Zurich stays mysteriously in the last top corner of the palace. Servants are not allowed to clean his room in his absence. It is considered the dark corner of the palace. Zurich has his vicious plans. He wants to be a king, and for that, it is important to remove the prince. But the prince is always surrounded and guarded by soldiers and spies. Zurich keeps on making plans to kill Arso. For the last few days, Zurich is going out of the palace every day. He goes alone, and nobody knows when he comes back. Zurich is meeting a mysterious person, Pisho, who does black magic. One day he gives a liquid bottle to Zurich. He explains everything in detail about how and when to use that liquid. But he never told Zurich what will happen to Arso after drinking that liquid, except that Arso will disappear from the earth. Zurich laughs loudly, and he danced in joy, which was a rare thing to happen. In that jungle, nobody is there to see how Zurich was dancing on one leg. The next morning, he goes to meet the prince. He took him in his lap and goes into the outer ground and place to train him for horse riding. People in the palace were seeing that the prince was very happy to ride a horse. After playing with his uncle Zurich, Arso comes back to the palace and takes food with his mother. After having the food, he sleeps in his room, which was a normal routine. Nobody knew, and none has seen that while taking a horse ride, Arso was made to drink the magical liquid by Zurich. Queen Sophia left the prince in sound sleep. In the evening, Queen Sophia waits for Prince to come for his evening milk, but the maid informs her that the prince is not there in the room. Within hours, the whole palace was shouting, crying, and running here and there to search for the prince. King Arthur called all his spies and guards and most faithful ministers to arrange the search teams everywhere, but up to midnight it was sure that the prince is nowhere. Queen Sophia fainted. King Arthur is bewildered and does whatever is possible to search for Arso. Morning sun brings dismay, sadness, and pain. The whole country was sad. Every man and woman is talking about Prince Arso and making speculations about where the prince can be. The next day, search teams sent to jungles, hills, caves, even river beds were searched. But there is no sign of the prince. Day passed, and gradually it was accepted that the prince has become a victim of a great conspiracy or some accident. King was silent, sad, and trying to do what a king should do irrespective of time and situation. Queen is unconscious. and all doctors are successful in keeping her breath alive. Nothing was working on her. Palace was sad and silent and dark as a graveyard, and the land of happiness turned into a land of tears. The only person happy was Zorik. In the absence of the king, Zorik enjoys his leadership and keeps on dreaming of becoming a king soon. He is happy with his newfound power. King was not strong enough to see what Zorik is doing to innocent people. Every native of the land of the country keeps on thinking about only one thing: what happened to Prince Arso. Only the prince knows he is alive, and that too in the palace only. Only Arso knows what happened that day. The day he was enjoying the horse ride with his uncle Zorik. His uncle made him drink a liquid. When his mother left him sleeping, he slept soundly. But when he woke up, he could not believe that he was not he, but a green frog. He was shocked and scared, and he cried loudly. But there was no one to hear his cries. For an hour he kept on sitting on his bed. Then his maid came, and he tried to call her by her name, but to his surprise, the maid shouted with fear to see a frog on the bed. She immediately picked a shoe and thrown on the frog to shoo him away. Arso jumped and fell on the ground and saved himself from the hit of the shoe. It was real that he was a frog now, and he could not speak and talk to anybody. The maid called other servants to catch the frog and kill him. Arso was jumping left and right and trying to save his life. Servants were running after him to kill. Arso's life turned into a nightmare within seconds. Arso somehow reached the outer ground, but his problems had just started. In the garden also he had to save himself from the feet of people working there, and from the hoofs of the horses. He remembered that there was a well in the garden, and it was his favorite place to play. Somehow he reached the well. He sat on the corner of the well, but suddenly lost balance and fell into the well. In the well, he thought he was going to drown and die. But to his wonder, he was not drowning but swimming. He could not believe it, and he was looking at the water, then at his lower body, then at the sky. The other frogs in the well were looking shockingly toward the prince. Prince Frog didn't know what to do and where to go. Arso spent that night sticking to the wall of the well. The next morning when he woke up, he cried again. He was not accepting that he was a frog now. He was missing his mother and father. A small baby frog came near and asked him what happened and why is he crying. Arso is shocked again that he can hear and understand the language of frogs. He cleared his throat and tried to speak, but only the sound of croak-croak. Baby Frog thought that Arso was a deaf and dumb frog. He tried to make signs to talk with Arso, but Arso preferred to remain silent. Day after day, Prince Arso learned to eat, sleep, walk, and jump the way frogs do. It was never easy. Every day he sits on the outer wall of the well and keeps on looking at the palace. When nobody is around to see, he enters the palace and looks into the room of his mother, Queen Sophia. It is very painful to see the ailing queen. He cries, tears don't stop. Nobody on earth could imagine that frogs also cry. He looks at his father sitting silently or looking at the sky for hours and hours. Prince Arso felt so helpless and painful. Every day Arso remembers what his father has taught. If there is a problem, there is a solution. His father taught him to be brave in all situations, and not to be afraid. He remembers all his teachings. Days passed and Prince Arso swore by the love of his parents that he would get his life back. He kept on thinking. Now he has so many frogs as his friends. One day in the evening gathering, he narrates his tragic story to all his frog friends. They are sad and shocked to hear this. All frogs promise to help him to get back his life. Every day frogs bring new suggestions, and Arso tries on his suggestions. The first suggestion: try to hug his parents. As per old frogs, parents never forgot the body smell of their kids. So with good planning, Arso with a few friends enters the palace and goes to father's room. As usual, the king was sitting still and looking out of the window. Prince Arso takes a jump, but he could not even reach above the feet of the king. So they make another plan to ride on the chair first, then fall in the king's lap. As planned, with lots of hard work, Frog rides on the chair and succeeds to fall in father's lap. But to his shock, His father holds him from his back and threw him out of his lap. It was a disaster plan. The second suggestion is kiss to the mother. It will give double benefits. His mother will come out of the coma with his son's touch. And second, maybe the spell of magic will break as he heard in fairy tales. As per the plan, Prince Arso climbs the bed of his mother. The moment he tries to kiss his mother, a nurse notices the frog, and her screams bring so many servants. He and his friend have to jump like clowns to save their life. Suggestions of singing Dad's favorite song and making Mom's favorite dish were given, but it was not possible for Arso in the body of a frog. The least he could do is to pick and drag a violet flower every day to his mother's bed. It is not being noticed, but he is doing it daily to show his love for his mother. The third suggestion: send a letter to parents. The only problem is who will write the letter. But this idea remained in Arso's brain for a long time. He kept on thinking about this idea. He remembers that his father taught him painting too. This idea of letters and painting kept swirling in his brain, and these ideas are making him restless. His intuition is telling him that it is a hint towards the solution to his problem, but how is still to answer. He kept on playing with these ideas. One day when he was enjoying the morning sun in the courtyard, he saw soldiers working on something. It is a mass prayer organized by a priest of the palace temple to pray for Prince Arso. The public is invited. Soldiers are placing the paintings at the venue. These paintings are of the king, Sophia, and Arso in one frame. King also got framed the funny little, half-done paintings of Arso. By looking at those paintings, Arso got one idea. King Arthur is standing near these frames. He is touching the palm of his hand on the paintings made by Arso. Arso was amused and feeling shy, as these were stupid strokes of brush, rather, and not paintings. But in those moments when his father is trying to get the feel of his son Arso in these stupid paintings, Arso finds a solution to this problem. He decides to make his father feel that Arso is here, very near to him. He was happy, very happy, mad with joy, and jumping exactly behind his father, the saddest father on earth at that moment. They were so close physically, still so far like stars from Earth. So Arso discusses this idea of him with his friends. They are equally positive about the idea. But how to do this? Frogs don't have canvas, brushes, or colors, and not even their size was a constraint. But Arso is adamant to do it. All little brains were put to work. How a frog will create a painting, big and good enough to be visible to the king and queen. Every day they tried with their little hands, on the ground, on the walls of the well. But all were very little, and there were no colors in there, and these were not visible. One day he saw an ant who was trying to drag a soft petal with its branch towards her hole. It was funny as the ant was very small compared to the branch and petal. But ant was confident enough to pull. Now branch was wet and laced with mud. So it was leaving long trails on the ground like strokes of a paintbrush. Arso got his strokes. He finds a soft branch, get it wet in mud, and threw on the wall. It created a donkey tail-like image. But it was something, a bit long, black in color, and visible. Frogs also did what Arso told them. Frogs painted the wall with flower plant branches, and the next day it is a scene to watch. Servants are shocked to see the dirty walls of the well. All had to work hard to clean these walls from mud. They were cleaning and cursing whoever had done this. Frogs were laughing and enjoying this moment of the first victory of getting noticed. It is the turn of Arso to practice what to draw, when and where. He decides to paint the best moments of his life so far. He remembered that his father was very fond of flying kites with him. His mom's long hair and a violet flower were his favorites. Climbing trees by making his father a climbing stair, and plucking berries with his mom in the garden were his favorite memories. He is clear about how to make his mother and father realize that he is alive and very near to them. In the night, he gets out with friends. Frogs are using 2 legs to walk, and their first 2 legs are loaded with mud. Few are carrying mud and petals. In the bedroom of his father, he chooses a wall and starts drawing his first painting, a boy with his mother and father. By looks they were resembling the Arso family. The next morning, he keeps himself hidden behind the curtain to see what happens. In the morning, his father wakes up, looks at Arso's photo in the frame, and goes to the window to see the rising sun. When he turns up and realizes there is something on the wall, the king could not ignore it. He bends a bit and tries to see it clearly. His eyes get widened for a second, but for that moment only. King calls the servants and inquires about this. Nobody had a clue. King could not go away. He is sure that it is some signal. He tells this to the queen, who is still in bed, sick and silent. The next day Arso draws a boy flying a kite with his father. This time he takes care to make his face. King was actually not expecting one more painting, but after seeing this, he was sure there is something, and he needed to find out. He was anxious to know who was sending him messages about his son. Why now, after so many days? This news reaches Zurich too. He is scared to death. It is something he never even dreamed of. But he is not ready to lose the battle he already won. He appointed his spies near that room to see who is drawing the paintings. But this time Arso is ready, as it was his time to reply to the enemy. He changes the wall. It is his mother's room. And he drew his mom, long hair, velvet flower in her hair, and Arso in her lap. King is sad to see no new painting in his room. But soon he found this in Queen's room. Now the king is sure that these paintings are about Arso. On the third night, Arso paints himself, his mother and his father picking berries in the garden. This time he paints it near the dining table so that his father could notice. Zurich was mad like anything. He was pulling his hair as he was not able to catch the culprit painter. King decides to remain awake in the night, but he is not sure which location this mysterious painter will pick to draw. Arso is sure that he has been noticed, and now is the right time to give the last turn to his plan. Today he brings colors made of flowers. Today he is going to draw his masterpiece. It is a series of shots. A man in a black dress with a cane to walk is playing with a kid on one horse. And next he is making the kid drink a liquid, and in the third there is a green frog on the horse, and man in black is laughing. It was really a masterpiece, as the king took no time to get the idea of what must have happened to the prince. He immediately ordered the soldiers to bring the Zurich. Zurich gets the news fast and tries to run, but a limping man could not run. King's men bring him dragging like a sack full of potatoes. King's men beat the hell out of him, and now he sings like a bird. He accepts his crime. He is so full of venom. The king never realized it. But the problem is not ended yet. King is to find the Arso. King's army goes to the jungle to bring that black magic expert who turned the prince into a frog. King looks at the garden, and he sees lots of frogs. But these frogs are not afraid when the king moves towards them. Sitting close to these frogs, the king, who is in tears now, utters the name Arso, to see if Arso can hear him. On the second utterance, Arso comes forward and pulls the long gown of his father. King picks this frog in his hand and brings it close to his face. Arso is also crying. Both are crying. The magician is present in the palace. Seeing the condition of Zurich, he offers his help immediately. He prepares the potion which was able to bring Arso back into a human body. Nobody can put into words that moment when a frog turns into Arso. King and Arso hugged each other tightly. Tears were the words. There was no need to speak. Arso touches his mother. He kisses her on the cheek of his mother, and his eyes, which were shut for weeks, get open. A day to be remembered forever. Finally, the family got united. The culprits Zurich and the magician were thrown in jail for life. King organizes a feast for all. Good times are back, and it is a fairyland once again. Land of happiness, laughter, and peace. Arso never forgot his friends in need, the great frogs. He invited all the frogs and prepared a special table for them to enjoy the feast. From then onward, it is an accepted truth in the countries that nobody will hurt the frogs, as they are the best creatures and best friends of humans.